Welcome in, fans, to the Two Line Pass podcast. I'm Randon. Here with me is Dustin. Our co-host, Ryan, is out, not for the season, just for the night. Dustin, games have been played, hearts have been broken. Welcome into the show tonight.
Thank you very much. I think my voice is recovered. For the most part, I still get a little hiccup, so I will try to not violently clear my throat into the microphone like I did last week. I think you got that edited out pretty well, though. I don't think that was in there, but I will save you the work of having to do it again. So I'm glid to be here.
Well, I'm excited.
And in better voice.
I'm excited that you are 100%-ish. And yeah, the audience, you didn't get to hear the majesty of Dustin's cough into the microphone. So if you want to do it again for the fans, we can.
And I just went for it. I clicked the mute button and then just violently right into the mic, I just tried to clear my throat, just violently coughed into it, and then went to unclick the mute button and realized it wasn't clicked. I'm like, oh, that's a mistake. But luckily we have a very good editor that wiped that off the face of the earth.
I'll tell you, that editor's been slacking. He hasn't posted anything to YouTube recently. What a jerk. Consider yourself fired, editor. New editor, you're hired. You better not let us down, new editor. It's the going rate for editors.
I don't think you will. I don't know. I think it depends on who you're doing it for and what the content is. If you're editing poker videos on YouTube for Spraggy, he's probably taking care of you. But if you're editing videos for an upstart Let's Play channel, they're probably paying you in Cheetos. So depends on where you land.
If you want to edit a upstart niche statewide hockey podcast, well, you just let us know and we'll get you in. And Cheetos, I've got Flamin' Hot, I've got jalapeno Flamin' Hot, I got Puffs. So you just tell me which Cheetos you want.
They have a new buffalo flavored Cheeto. I'll spring for those.
There you go. You're going to be swimming in Cheetos, so you just tell us. But Dustin, it's been kind of a rough go of things for our Utah Hockey Club, and most recently they got destroyed by the Washington Capitals. It was a 6-2 affair. We did get to see Alexander Ovechkin get 2 more in his quest for Gretzky's scoring title, and then he unfortunately went down with an injury. Jack McBain kind of catching some flack for an unfortunate hit that was not intentional at all, completely accidental. And if it wasn't for Alex Ovechkin's glass shins, we wouldn't even be talking about this. But yeah, that game against Washington, man, again, little spurts of time. We're talking about minutes, right? 3 goals, what was it? 3 goals, 3 minutes, or it was just these minute parts of the game. And Utah just completely collapses and it all goes awry. And it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating to watch.
It's extremely frustrating, especially because one thing that Utah has become really, really good at is setting the tone early. They come out and they play really, really well in the first period. They've been taking early leads it's been 3 or 4 straight games against really, really good teams where they've come out and they've taken a lead early and they've just kind of put their imprint on the game. And they did that again against Washington. They came out, they scored really quickly, doing exactly what we've told them to do. Just put the puck on the net, and McBain finds the back of the net, just putting in a rebound like that, like we've asked them to over and over. And they do that, and then just in the blink of an eye, I believe it was 3 goals on 5 shots, and the game feels almost out of reach, which I believe is a segue into another topic I know you want to discuss, so I'll let you kind of get there on your own. But yeah, it was very frustrating because this team has shown a lot of promise, and I think if we were to look at the last 3 games, the Washington loss is obviously leaving a poor taste in our mouth, but the 2 games before that, they controlled that Vegas game for 2.5 periods, and they let it slip away. But there was a lot of good that came out of that game, and you liked a lot of what you saw. And then obviously the game before that, they beat the Carolina, they beat the Canes, and they look amazing in that game. Veggie is just phenomenal all game long. Probably because I was in the stands, but I don't want to take too much of the credit. But I think that the last loss is just, it's leaving a sour taste in our mouth. But it does leave a little to be desired with what we have going on in net.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And we talked about it earlier about how the goal obviously is 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 wins, 1 loss, and that gets you pretty much to the wild card. And now we are firmly entrenched in the 1 win, 2 loss or worse. But you're absolutely right. We absolutely controlled. I even tweeted that we were the better team on the ice in that Vegas game, and then in just mere moments, it all falls apart. And we're looking, we're looking for fingers to point, right? And people to blame. And you don't want to just you don't want to blame one specific player because, it took everybody working together as a team to screw this one up kind of thing. That's the mentality we should take. But there's some blame to go around. Like, my boy, Nick Schmaltz, you got to score, man. You got to put the puck in the back of the net. He's leading the team in assists. He's playing great defensively, all things considered. I think he's playing phenomenal on defense. I think sometimes some of his turnovers just happen to be at the worst possible time. But overall, I would say his defensive effort is there. But you got to put the puck in the back of the net, right? Like, you're a top line forward. You've got to score. And with the line changes, we discussed that we think that they're firmly entrenched now. So at this point, now there's no more excuses, right? No more, I'm not used to this line, or I'm not, we should see, ideally, no more line movements, at least from the forwards perspective. Defensemen when health issues, obviously, but that's months in the future. We should be set. The defensive pairings should be set as well. So then you're going to start to ask, okay, well, we've got everything set. You're playing the game. So what's going wrong? What needs to change? What needs to change? And like you alluded to earlier, I unfortunately think one of the biggest things is the netminders. We really have to decide who is going to start as the goalie and who is going to be the backup, and none of this 50-50 every other game, not, oh, you had a really incredible game, so you earned a win, and followed that up with an also equally impressive performance, but, Connor Ingram's the starter, and so we got to give it back to him. No, pick a guy and stick with it. And Dustin, I would like to go on a soapbox eventually and talk about why I think Veggie's that guy. Right now, finger pointing at the goalie.
And it's not entirely on the goalie. Like, the Washington's, I believe it was their first goal last night. That sprung due to a really bad turnover by Lamoureux. Like you pointed out, there's a lot of stuff that goes around. There's a lot of blame to be shared. But to me, it seems like every single time that Connor Ingram is in net, and I've been a huge Connor Ingram fan. I believed in him to start the season. I took the over in our over-under line episode. I took the over on shutouts because I thought he was going to be able to do it. But it just seems like every single game there is at least one goal that he lets go that should have been stopped. And I'm not gonna sit up here and say that what he does is easy. I couldn't go to my local rink and put on the pads and save these shots that I'm expecting him to save. I couldn't do that myself. I'm not gonna be able to glove a 90-mile-per-hour slap shot coming right at my face. But it's something that if you're going to be one of the top 10 to 15 goalies in the NHL and basically essentially the world, like you need to be to make any sort of run at the playoffs, you have to make those saves. And it seems like every single week there's at least one goal, sometimes even two, where you watch the replay and you just say, Ingram, you've got to make that save, man. You have to make that save. Like the game against the Canes, Vejmelka stopped 49 shots. And a lot of them were they're right there. Like, he didn't have many like amazing saves where you're looking at it like, wow, how did he get a pat on that? He did have a couple, but a lot of them were just routine saves. They came really easy to the glove, or they're up in the chest, but he still handled them the right way. Like he gathers them in, and if he has to, he ices it, creates a face-off. He's doing what he's supposed to do, and he didn't let in any of those cheap goals like Connor seems to do once or twice every game. And you can't win games when your goalie is letting in 1-2 shots a game that shouldn't be finding the back of the net. You shouldn't have a game like last night against Washington where you're up 1-0 and then you blink and you're down 3-1. And at least, I'm not going to say that any of those should have been saved, but they could have been. There was one that came on that like 2-on-1 break that was just an amazing cross pass to a one-timer that could beat him on the pad side, and like that would have been an amazing save. But the one that Ovechkin's first one, maybe you can say that should have been saved, and that just can't happen. I think I might agree with what you're about to say, but I think you have to give Veggie a shot. I think he's earned it. And I think Ingram is, at least to this point in the season, shown that he's not going to be the type of goalie that wins you games. You're going to have to score 3 or 4 goals in a game to win if you have Ingram in net. And that's just the way it's been all season long. And we're through, 18 games now? We're through a quarter of the season. You got to figure out what's going on in net.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this podcast, we've obviously been a huge fan of Ingram. We had a player spotlight on him. I think he's a tremendous human being, and I think he's a very talented goalie. It's just not his year right now, right? It's just not his year. And we kind of, I think, early defended him and had this mentality of, oh, well, he's doing enough. He's keeping him in games. But the more I look at it, I feel like Utah won despite Connor Ingram and not because of Connor Ingram. We talked about how he hadn't stolen a game before. Now, Vejmelka absolutely stole the Carolina game. That's the type of performance. When we're talking about a goalie stealing a game, that's the game you look at. That's the textbook definition of a goalie stealing a game. And Vejmelka has one, and it just happens to be his only win. And Ingram doesn't have that breakout performance. He's got some good, solid performances early, but like we're talking like 5-4 wins, stuff like that. Boston was maybe his best game, but we have not seen top-tier Connor Ingram in a while, and so you have to wonder, is it time to fully make the switch? And you got to commit, Tourigny. You've got to commit to a goalie. Please, I don't care if it's Ingram, but please just commit to a goalie. I mean, 4 starts on, 1 start off. Like, that should be that should be it. That's what the top-tier goalies are doing. No top-tier team does a 50-50 goalie tandem. They just don't. So let me make the case. Let me make the case right now for Vejmelka. If you didn't see enough in the Carolina game, let me break it down for you, because right now, Vejmelka's sitting at 1-4, right? Does not look good. You're like, why would we start a guy who's 1-4? Well, Connor Ingram, 6-4-3, right? So if you count the overtime losses, more losses than wins. But let's look down just at the raw numbers, right? Raw numbers. Goals against average, Connor Ingram, 3.61. Vejmelka, 2.58. Vejmelka's allowing 1 less goal per game than Connor Ingram, which is an insane jump, right? It's an insane gap when we're talking about it.
That's insane, but just to kind of put it in context, 3.6 goals against is 50th in the NHL, whereas 2.5 goals against is 15th. Like that's a 35 goalie gap in between where those two rank, just in terms of goals given up, and that's an entire goal that you don't have to score to at least get into overtime and get yourself a point, which, I mean, if you're fighting for the wild card, every single point that you can get is going to matter at the end of the season, and a whole entire goal being saved by one goalie versus another is huge. Like, it doesn't sound like, okay, he allows one let. Like, it doesn't sound huge. But it is a difference between 50th in the league and 15th. It's astronomical. It's huge.
Like when we're comparing Vezina Trophy, which is the best goalie in the league, you're talking comparing fractions of goals against, right? Like 10th of a goal type thing. When you see a full goal differential, I mean, that's just it's a huge discrepancy in the goals against. So Connor just hasn't been there. Now, save percentage. Connor Ingram, .871, 87.1% save percentage. Vejmelka, 0.915, right? So this is again a significant difference. And you might be asking yourself, well, I mean, it's not that much, right? It's not that much. Let me break it down a little further for you. So for goalies who have played 4 games or more, right? I looked at who Vejmelka has a better save percentage than, and there's a slew of backup goalies you've never heard of. But here's some goalies that you may have heard of that Vejmelka has a better save percentage than. Jeremy Swayman, big deal with Boston. Adin Hill, Las Vegas' goaltender. Linus Ullmark, who was Boston's stud, traded to Buffalo. Semyon Varlamov. Sergei Bobrovsky, who just won a Stanley Cup. Darcy Kemper used to play for the Arizona Coyotes. Jacob Markstrom, rocking it in New Jersey. Ilya Sorokin. Logan Thompson. Igor Shesterkin, and UC Saros. I mean, those are not slouches. We're talking about Vezina winning goalies right there. And Vejmelka has a better save percentage than them. Through just 5 games played. He's only played 5. Let's give him some more starts. Now you're saying, well, what about our Connor, eh? There's only one starter who has a worse save percentage than Connor Ingram. And that's Alexander Georgiev of Colorado, who we know is not a very good goalie. But unlike Connor Ingram, Georgiev has an extremely good and consistent team in front of him. And that's why the Avalanche are ahead of us. Yes, they face their struggles, but they seem to have shaken it off. Right? So that's the save percentage, right? And so I don't know. Dustin.
And I will add something to that. You might be, okay, you might be asking, like, okay, well, who has those starts come against? Maybe he's playing some of the easier teams on the schedule. Maybe he's in net for some of those easier games. His starts are against New Jersey, who is an above 500 team, Colorado, who is another above 500 team, Winnipeg, who's the best team in the freaking league, and Carolina, who's the second best team in the East. Like, these are good teams that he is starting against, and he's outperformed it nearly. I mean, he's in the top third in the NHL in terms of net minding, and he's at least statistically far better than Connor Ingram, and he's doing it against really, really good competition. And if you look at his record, like you pointed out, he's got 1 win. But I want to point out, in the New Jersey game, Utah scored 0 goals. In the Colorado game, Utah scored 1 goal. In the Winnipeg game, Utah scored 0 goals. His first 3 starts, Utah scored a combined 1 goal. And it wasn't until the Carolina game, where they scored 4, that they actually gave him some offensive production to help him win a game. Like, you can't just look at the record. You just look at what he does in terms of save percentage and goals that he gives up, and he's, at least at this point, much, much better than Connor Ingram. And I'm a huge Connor Ingram fan. Hope that he finds success. I don't know if it's going to be here in Utah. I don't know what the answer is if you have to make a trade for another goalie, but as of right now, Vejmelka's the guy. And I think you have to go with him.
Absolutely. And it's not just the Carolina. I think we can agree that if Connor's in net against Carolina, even those 4 goals are not enough. Carolina still likely beats Utah if Connor Ingram is in net.
Yeah, and I don't know. Utah had to play through about 2.5 periods before they finally found their stride offensively. Like, they scored early, just like I talked about. Utah takes hold of these games early. They score, they take a 1-0 lead, and then in the second period, just seemingly completely fell apart. I want to say they got outshot in the second period against that game, against Carolina, like 17-5 or something like that. Like, it wasn't even close. Carolina can completely control the second period. Utah gets out of there with a 1-1 tie. And then just at one point, they just went goal that was taken away, another goal, just bang, bang, bang. And they finally put the game away. But yeah, I think at that point, if you had Connor in net instead of Vejmelka, they probably at least put one, maybe two, and then you're fighting to tie that game up rather than put that game away. And that's huge emotionally for a young team. Like, that is the first game that we've seen all year, and so far it is the only one that we've seen all year that a goalie has gone out and taken away from the other team. And that's the second best team in the East right there, that he just ripped it away from. A team that coming into that game had scored at least 4 goals in like 5 games straight, I believe it was. Like, I can look into it in a second. I'll let you talk and I'll look up. But they were scoring 4 goals a game, and Vejmelka just ripped it away from him. Like, that alone, to me, says you have to give him a chance to be your goalie. Run him out for the next 3 or 4 games before you put Ingram back in net and see how he responds. And if he doesn't respond, if he kind of falls apart, then maybe you can look, okay, we're going to have to make a move. We're going to have to bundle these guys and maybe some prospects and one of our fourth line guys to go out and grab a goalie from a team that's not going to make the playoffs. Maybe somebody wants to offload a goalie, but you have to at least see if you can win with what you have. And that's Vejmelka.
Yep. Absolutely. I don't want to pour it on Ingram too much, but I'm going to. About his goals against average, the list of goalies that Vejmelka was better than in save percentage is very similar in goals against. There is nobody, however, no starter has a worse goals against average than Connor Ingram, not even Georgiev. He is statistically just not great, not great. But you may be saying, you unfair jerks, listen, Connor Ingram, even though Dustin just broke it down that Vejmelka has played some top-tier teams, Connor Ingram has really faced the most talented offenses, and he's having to face thousands upon thousands of shots, and of course some of them are going to get in. Well, let's take a look. Connor Ingram has played 13 games, and he has faced 334 shots. That's 25.7 shots per game. Now, there are 13 other goalies who have played 13 games. Dustin, of those 13 goalies, how many do you think have faced less shots than Connor Ingram? Close. None. 0. A big goose egg. In his 13 games...
I thought that was too obvious. I thought it was too obvious.
Nope. Connor Ingram has faced the least amount of shots out of any of those 13 goalies who have started 13 games or more. Well, actually, it's exactly 13, because I didn't want to be like, oh, well, of course a player with 14 is going to have more. For goalies that have played exactly 13 games, Connor Ingram has faced the least shots out of all 13 of them. Now, Karel Vejmelka has played 7 games, 5 starts, 2 in relief. He's already come in for relief for Connor twice in this season. And there have been 8 goalies who have played exactly 7 games. He is third most. Vejmelka has faced the third most shots out of those. And he's only 2 shots behind being second on that list. He's facing 27.1 shots per game. Even when he comes in relief, he's getting peppered. Vejmelka has 100% proved that he is right now the better goalie. And he's playing as the better goalie. The only reason you wouldn't start Vejmelka is because exactly what you said, Dustin. For whatever reason, the team just did not play in front of Karel Vejmelka. They just decided that they were going to take a few games off and give him no help whatsoever until that Carolina game. Why does the team play better in front of Ingram? I don't know. Is it luck? Is it skill? Is it what? I don't know, but it's coaching malpractice to make that switch. And Tourigny even said, well, Ingram's, deserves it, and it's unfair to Ingram, because this league, this schedule is so hard, and you're going to need 2 goalies. Yes, you're going to need 2 goalies, but not at a 50-50 clip. No top-tier team does that, Tourigny. Nobody. None whatsoever. Stop it. It's just like your 7 defensemen. That's not a long-term winning strategy. It might get you through a few games, but it's not long-term. And thank goodness you've seen the light. You went back to 4 forward lines. Now you got to pick a goalie. Man, you got to pick a goalie because you're doing them both a disservice by not. You've got to tell Connor Ingram, hey, bud, you got to get your head right. We're going to give you a few games to get there. And then you got to say, hey, Vejmelka, you earned this. You're playing out of your mind. Go out there and show us why you earned this. Please do the right thing and make Veggie the starter. I want to say one more thing as to why, if you needed even more proof, why the switch to Veggie makes the most sense now. Last year, Connor Ingram won 23 games. 15 of those 23 came before January. He was very good early in the season and very not so good in the second half of the season. Unless you're hoping that he flips that script, I think right now you're saying, Ingram, you're going to be our backup. And that's okay. That's okay. Vejmelka, you get the start, my man. Make it happen, Tourigny.
Okay, and I brought this up. I just want to add to it. I said that Carolina had scored at least 4 in how many games? I looked it up, and this really puts into perspective how good Vejmelka was in that game. Okay, the first game of the season, Carolina scored 1 goal. That was it. Since then, the 13 games leading up to the Utah game, Utah was their 15th game of the season. In the next 13, they scored 4 goals in all but 2 of those. At least 4. They scored over 4 than that. They scored at least 4 in all but 2 of those. And in those 2 where they didn't score at least 4, they scored 3. So in every single game since their season opener, they have scored at least 3 goals. Vejmelka holds them to 1. And then in the 2 games since then, they've won 4 and 4-1. They went right back to scoring 4 goals. That one blip in the middle of that is Vejmelka. And he shut down one of the best offenses in the league who is scoring, it's got to be at least 4.2 goals per game at this point in the season. And he held them below 25% of that. That performance was phenomenal. And I had to point that out because it really puts into perspective just how good he was and what type of offense that he shut down. So I completely agree with you. I am completely on board with telling Vejmelka, Veggie, you're our guy. You're our starter. You're gonna get 3-4 games in a row, and then Connor will spell you, but it's not gonna be a 50-50 split anymore. Connor, thank you for everything that you've done for this team. We still believe in you, but we have to give Veggie a shot at this because we just need to figure out what's going on the defensive side of the puck, and we just need to switch some stuff up. Bears had no problem switching around lines, moving guys from the top line to the bottom line, switching around the defense, doing some things that are out of the norm with how many forwards and how many defensemen there are. But I think the lines are done. They're set. The first line is playing great. The second, all of the lines are good. I think we probably have arguably the best 4th line in the entire NHL. They're phenomenal. They score all the time. They fight. They play with heart. They hit. The 4th line on this team is awesome. I love it. Now just figure out the goalie situation. And it feels like we're that close. We're that close to being at least a playoff team, if not in the playoffs, not fighting for a wild card, firmly in the playoffs. And it's just that small little bit that we need to figure out. And we have to figure out if Veggie is the guy. You have to give him the shot to find out if he can be that guy, to know whether or not you need to make a move. I know that you listen to this podcast. I know you're doing the things that we suggest. Even the NHL, the Boston Bruins are firing their coach just like we told them to. Everybody is listening to us. Make the damn switch. Just do it. Do it.
I'm just saying, you bring up an excellent point, Dustin. Ryan called the shot. He said Boston's going to fire their head coach, and Coach T's going to get the boot, and we are going to bring him in. The prophecy step 1 has been fulfilled. Boston has fired their coach. Last year, dude won 65 games. This year, that organization is a complete dumpster fire, and I'll tell you, I don't believe it's because of the coach. Tourigny, my man, we talked about it. I asked Dustin, when is too soon to fire the head coach? Well, the Boston Bruins say 20% of the season, 20 to 25% of the season, 1/4 of the season is long enough. That's a big enough sample size. So all bets are off, my man. You got to start doing the right thing. And the right thing is getting Veggie in net. Well, Coach T's going to do it. He's going to make the right moves, and we're going to see if your prediction, Dustin, is on track. Dustin predicted in his sickness, in his fever dream, that we would go a big 4-0 on this road trip coming up, because that's what you've got. You've got Boston on Thursday, a team that's in complete disarray, with the worst power play in existence, which is worse than ours, which is hard to do. But then
I cannot believe that. I cannot believe that we do not have the worst power play in the league. Like, we went, 0 for 7 against Washington?
0 for 7.
It was at least 7, because I went to bed early. I didn't catch the end of that game. But when I went to bed, it was 0 for 7. And they didn't even have good opportunities in those power plays. Like, it seems like Utah struggles to even get set up in their power play. And we can talk about this. I know we've already been going for a long time. We can talk about this in the maybe next week's episode. And hopefully in the next 4 games it gets flipped on its head and we don't have to complain about the power play anymore. But I don't know what they're doing. Even when they get set up in their zone, it just seems like they're sitting with like 4 guys around the outside, Schmaltz in front of the net, and they just pass, fake a slap shot, pass, and then the puck gets knocked out of the zone without even taking a shot. So, yeah.
Do you know why that is, Dustin?
Play. I cannot believe it's because the fans in the stands aren't yelling shoot.
Thank you, guys. Come on.
You have convinced me. I'm fully on board. Yell shoot. I don't care. Shoot the puck. Shoot the puck. Yell it. Let them know they have to shoot, because that is a problem with this team. And I'm just putting it out into the ether. Utah, fix it. Go like 50% on this road trip. Go 60%. Score on all your power plays so that I don't have to complain about this next week. Fix it.
Well, I hate to tell you this, that Andre Tourigny-led teams are pretty terrible in special teams. For the last 3 years, the Arizona Coyotes were pretty bad, and so I don't suspect that they were going to be any better. But right now, special teams is just
the
awful.
Arizona Coyotes didn't have talent. This team has the talent to be good enough.
I thought that too, and then I realized I took off the mask and we were just the Coyotes still. Your awful franchise. A curse. We won't be free. We won't be free until we trade them all away. No, we'll keep Schmaltz, and then we'll trade everybody else away. Schmaltz is the only one worth staying. But we got Pittsburgh on Monday, and then a back-to-back, Pittsburgh and then Toronto. And then Montreal rounds out the road trip. And that's when our next scheduled episode is. So we'll see if we can get some post games in there for you. But Dustin said 4-0. I think we split 2-2. But if we lose to Boston, guys, you don't even need to hit the panic button, because you might as well just start booking your golf reservations.
Eject button. You just slap the eject button.
Season's
you lose
over.
to Boston with how they're playing this year. Unless this happens in other sports, I don't know if it happens in hockey, but sometimes after you fire a coach, the players will rally around the new guy, around the interim guy. So that could happen. I will toss a life raft to Utah before the game even happens, but don't use it. Just win the game. And I want to say, all 4 of these games, 5 o'clock. So you can watch them with the family. You don't got to send the kids to bed an hour after it starts because it's their bedtime. All of these games will be over before their bedtime. Watch them with your family. Enjoy it. Teach your kids the joys and wonders of hockey. PM hockey is beautiful. I love it. Just make this whole week good. I'm just sending out good positive vibes. 4-0, 5 o'clock games. It's perfection.
Poetry, my man, poetry. Well, we'll see, and we'll be there with you every step of the way. Well, do the right thing, Coach T. Put in veggie, fix your special teams, win on this road trip, and everything will be fine. Dustin, thanks so much for joining me tonight. Ryan, we'll see you next time. And hey, guys, everybody, thanks for listening.